Hey campers, Georgia. Yeah, man. Sunday morning, puttering around, tinkering. This guy. This packaging just kills me. And you know what? I thought it a perfect opportunity because I've had a lot of questions. How do you know the sizes and all that good stuff and making the sheaths and things? And you know what? I want to make a sheath for this guy. So, perfect opportunity. This is how I do it. Let's check it out.
It's going to be a long video, guys, so I made chapter markings for you so you can jump around. First of all, when you're going to make a sheath, this is my thoughts on it. I'm no expert. I learned the hard way doing it myself, figured it out, and I keep things as simple as I can. You got to have, whatever knife, tool, whatever you're going to put a sheath on, look at it and decide kind of what you want to make. With a Swiss Army knife, they're beautiful knives. They're elegant, clean cut, and do everything. Making a sheath for it, you don't want really a furry kind of sheath. You want something that's more rugged, stiffer, and smarter is the way I think of it. So, I looked at different leathers. Here I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to cut my leather up. And now I have to decide what kind of sheath do I want to make. So I went back and looked at some and kind of tried to figure out what would look good. I knew I was going to come back to this. I really like this idea for a sheath. Simple, fairly simple, straightforward. It looks different and pretty cool. So that's what I decided on. Now, I'm on a budget. Most people are. You don't want to waste your leather. So when you start cutting up a sheet of leather, you want to try and make sure you're not going to waste. You are going to get waste. You just got to be smart about it. Don't just willy-nilly cut away. I wanted to make some measurements, and my pencil tip was a little dull. So this was an opportunity for me to use my favorite blade, the pen blade, and this is why it's called a pen blade. They were originally designed for quills back in the day. People who used a quill dipped it in the ink and that. They used these little pen blades to sharpen that quill to get that nice writing that looks nice and neat. I love using those blades for that. Here I'm trying to figure out dimensions, where I want to cut my leather. I don't really like starting on a new side of a sheet of leather, but I wanted measurements and I did no way around. Here you are seeing how I decide what size the leather needs to be cut at to wrap around the knife. And all you do is you lie it down, give yourself a little bit of space, and roll it over so you get one full revolution. And just make a mark and measure that. And that will tell you how much leather, the length of the leather you need to wrap it. And then, of course, you needed that long piece that's going to wrap around top to bottom. Originally thought of just doing one piece of leather, just like you're looking at there. Then I realized, that's not going to work because the way the stitching is and things like that. I didn't want the stitching in the front. I wanted it hidden. So I decided on two pieces of leather, which actually turned out to be a good decision because I could go back to the already used side of that leather sheath. Here I'm just marking out where stitching's going to be, how I want to lay it out. Then I did the measurements. Now, that rollover measurement that I was doing, it's actually just over 3 inches. I like to add a little bit. One thing about leather is it stretches. When you make your sheath, you want it to actually be a tight fit the first time you ever put that knife in there. One of the reasons is that it stretches over time, and before long, you're going to have a sheath that's where the knife's going to be loose in there, especially if it's a fixed blade, something like that doesn't have a cover on it. Keep that in mind. Try to make it as tight as possible. Here I'm just, using the knife around the leather. If you know what I mean, I wrap the leather around, get a rough measurement, and that's what I'm working off. When I say a rough measurement, I try to get as close as possible. Like I said, you want it to be nice and tight. Here I'm trying to decide the width, and I like the width of the ruler. It works for me. It seems to work on everything. Here's a great tip, okay? And you're going to see what's going to happen here. I want you to listen when I cut this leather. By the way, get yourself a ruler that has that cork on the bottom. It really helps grip a steel ruler when you cut. Now listen to this cut. Can you hear it cutting? Not good. Ideally, with a piece of leather this thin, you should be just doing one cut. That's it. Problem here, my blade was not sharp enough. This you don't want to do, because as soon as you start going over and over a cut, you're gonna mess up that cut. You see how dull that is? I should have, and I normally do this, start with a good blade, a sharp blade. So here I am changing it out. Just like everything, a sharp pencil, a sharp blade. Listen to the cut here. Can barely hear the cut. It's not tearing through the leather, it's sliced it. One slice and it's out. Now you see here, that's from trying to go over it over and over. There was that little piece sticking out. So now I have to clean it up. That's why you start with a new blade. You live and learn. And you can see that nice clean cut, comes right off, straightened everything out. It just meant the strap was slightly thinner than I originally designed. Did it make any difference? Not that amount. Actually, it was, thinking about it now, the width of the ruler is a bit thick. Here I'm just trying to save leather again, like I was saying. Had to do those measurements and find a good place to cut out the rectangle that wraps around the knife. I'm just going to cut it up. To be honest, I don't really plan anything. I have an idea of what I want to do, which, you should plan. I would recommend drawing it out just roughly, kind of like I did there for my measurements. By the way, I don't keep measurements. My knives are never the same size, and I don't make multiple sheaths at any time. Most of my sheaths are like one at a time, one of a kind, size-wise, and that sort of thing. Here you can see that measurement I made. Now, here's the problem. I like to add a little bit to it, but I added just too much here. I'm going to have to trim off that square a little bit. You're going to see it here. Here I'm looking at the stitching that's going to stitch that wrap around there. And then those will fold over and make the sheath. So that looks okay now, except for that square. The square is just, it's too big, so I'll have to trim a bit off. What I'm doing here is I measure in 1/4 of an inch. That's kind of what I do. Here I'm just trimming off that leather. That's how much too big I made it. Changing that dimension. If you keep track, you want to keep these pieces of paper so that when you do it again, you've got that info. I don't. I work with what I got. Here I'm getting a center line for both pieces. The reason is you need to line them up in the middle. When I wrap that around the knife, it should be snug in there. Well, reasonably snug in there. And you can see it doesn't overlap, and now those fold over. This is not what I call a friction sheath. It doesn't need to hold the knife in if it didn't have the strap. If it was a friction, I would have made it a lot tighter. Now I'm just positioning where I want to stitch those two together. So that's going to go on there like that. Now I'm looking at it, you're looking at it incorrectly. The stitch is going to be underneath. There you can see I turned it over so that the stitch is against the strap. And there is the sheath you're looking at. Now that long thin piece that wraps around, it's going to get shorter. I like to have a little bit extra just because I'm paranoid. I'd rather have too much than too little. Now I'm lining up those center lines I was telling you about, because now I have to punch my holes for the stitch. And you can see here what I was talking about. The stitch is going to be against the other one. So I'm lining it up, so that's going to be one side. I'm going to punch through both. Do it the same thing on the other side by using the other edge. And just doing it both top and bottom, marking where the top is, punching the holes. And now when I roll that around, those holes I just punched are going to line up on the strap that wraps. I want you to see, did you notice that I overlap the punch holes? When you have a straight line, you're punching your holes, you want to keep them straight. Don't punch and then punch and just keep going up. I like to overlap my punching. So if you have a 4-prong, you overlap by 2 and it keeps the line straight. Trying to decide the leather color I wanted. I really like the British tan, and I think it suits this style of knife better than maybe a chocolate or a black. I have learnt the hard way. Use gloves. You can see I showed you there. I've still got stains from the last one I did. These little brushes come with the stains. Now, you can do this. Just go across and then back and forth to get a nice even coverage over it. I found I like the way British tan dries up, and it gives it a pretty cool look, kind of like a worn, not brand new leather look. So I just give it a good coverage. The more you put on, the darker it's going to be. Here you can see when that strap opens, that's the outside of the strap. Yeah, you can see I'm darkening the rectangle piece. Now on the inside here of that strap, remember one edge of that strap, the inside is going to be showing, that top piece. I'm just making it a little darker than the rest, because when you open the flap, you're going to see that, and I didn't want it to look odd. Now I was trying to decide what snap I wanted. I've bought a couple of 3 different kinds. This I got at a local Walmart. They're okay. They're a little flimsy. I like the color though, but it didn't go with what I wanted. I wanted a dark, traditional look. I matched the thread as well. Here you can see they've dried up now. You see what I mean about that leather? It's not the same darkness all the way through. It's a really nice look. Here I'm lining up those holes, remember, that I punched, putting everything in. Yeah, I'm paranoid. I measure. Also, sometimes when you put a dye on it and it dries, it'll shrink. So just make sure everything's good. One reason I put that dye on now is that when you punch these holes in the raw leather, they tend to close up again. So I put the dye on, which stiffens everything up, and just use an awl and widen those holes again. And they stay open, which makes the sewing so much easier. The boss is in, checking up on the safety and what I'm doing, and is it meeting her specs. She does not like the smell of that the dye, which is a good thing. I don't want her licking stuff and stuff like that. Here you can see I'm folding it in, just getting my needles ready. You can see when I wrapped how the leather is staying kind of wrapped. Mary's inspecting new products. This is a tip. I learned this the hard way. Every time I did a stitch, pushed the needle through and pulled it through, you'd leave the cord behind. It would slip out of the hole. By doing that, it keeps it attached. It makes things a lot easier. And here we go. The stitching I'm doing is very basic. It's small stitching. I don't have to be fancy with it. Here I just push it through one piece of leather and line it up with the hole on the other piece and start and go. I was doing a saddle stitch, which is that stitch. It looks like it's done with a sewing machine type thing. You'll see what I mean here. You use both sides, 2 needles at once. I suppose I should show it better. There you can see what I'm talking about there. And one thing you have to be careful of, when you're pushing the needle through where there is already a thread in there, don't go through the thread, because this thread won't allow you to tighten it up. So make sure you don't poke the other thread. Snip them off, give them a little bit of sticking out there, a couple of mil. Light it up with the lighter and just squish it down. It's got the wax on and everything, and it melts it together and holds it in. When you stitch, by the way, when you come to the end of your run, you should go back over the stitch, come back a bit, maybe 2 or 3 stitches, and then end it off. It just makes it hold better. Here I chose to do just a straight across stitch. Normally I would use a baseball stitch. A baseball stitch, I found, really does a good job when you're doing end-to-end stuff. Nobody's going to see this. It's going to hold it just fine. It just doesn't look as pretty as baseball. And there you can see I got the 2 saddle stitches done. You don't see that straight through, straight around edge stitching I do, so I wasn't worried about it. So that's why I didn't do a baseball or a cross stitch. Here I'm checking again. I'm going to make sure I want to get the lengths of these things to where I want them. It's so much easier to work with the leather once you put that dye on. It's stiffer and manageable. Making sure everything lines up, and then where I want to put the snaps. So I marked it on the outer one that you're going to see, I have these little punches. It came in a set of like 4. They're leather punches. When you punch through, the leather just pushes out and you can get it out. Here I'm just making a mark. Now I'm lining it up. Going to give it a good swat. Make sure you have, these cut mats. They're great, but when you punch through like this, you're just going to mess your cut mat up. So use something like a piece of wood like that. There you can see the snap push through and sticking up. Now I'm going to use that hole I just made, which is going to be the outside of the snap, to line up where I want the male side of the snap to be. So now I have it nice and tight in there the way I want it. And I'm just going to mark where I need to punch the hole for the inside male's side of the snap. Same thing again. Give it 1 or 2 hard punches. I didn't punch that one hard enough, so it didn't go all the way through. Now it did. So now I need to make another hole, because I'm going to bring that male side of that snap all the way through the wraparound to come up through and hold that bottom piece of strap. Now I need something to punch the hole with, and I need something to back it up. So I have this piece of wood, which is turning out to be really handy. It was just a cutoff I had from a rake handle, and it turned out to be pretty handy. I use it for a lot of things. You can see I punched through there. A little worried that the pin, the pillar on this wouldn't be long enough. Turned out to be just perfect, actually. And you can see it sticking through there. Push it down, and you can see it was long enough. I was a little concerned about that. Now I want the lengths, how much I need to trim off. I just marked it. I want to make sure it's straight. And then I remembered, when you work with leather, sharp corners is never a good thing. They get furry because they always get caught on things. So you want to round them off. I just happened to use that. I thought it was a good size. Got it all trimmed off. Now remember, I dyed it, so where I cut it, you can see it's not dyed. But thinking about it now, it's like, that's where things rub all the time and everything, and it looks like a used sheath. This is part of the Tandy snap kit you can get. It has the back, the anvil side, and then it has the stamps. It comes with like 4 different kinds. One thing you do need, though, is a solid table. My table's a little flimsy, so you need something that's solid. If need be, put it on the ground on some concrete or something, and just give it like 2 whacks should be enough to get it in there tight enough. With me, I have to whack away a little bit more because the table moves. It's not so solid, but it works. Now I'm putting that down there. I'm putting that the cover snap on the female side. Same punch again. You want to know how to do this? Tandy have a video. You just put, how to mount a snap, a leather snap. Tandy have a very quick, short video on their kit and how to do it. Very quick, very easy video to watch, and it's pretty straightforward once you watch that. Needed that circle again, so I got a bigger one, just a key ring that I had to make the curves. And then cut it around. You can see there, I wanted it rounded. Does it work? Don't know, maybe. Here you can see when I cut the leather and everything from that original sheet, I was on the edge and it was kind of furry. I don't know what this tool is called, but you can see what it looks like there. You can use that to trim the edges and clean up the edge of the leather. It gives it a nice cleaner finish. I also finish off the leather another way. You'll see that at the end. Here I'm very happy with myself. It holds it together and everything. Now I've got to clean up those edges and everything. The snap works. That comes out. It doesn't rattle around in there. It could have been a little tighter, but didn't want that. I wanted an easy out with the knife. Here is burnishing gum. And you can use this stuff. People use wax, and beeswax. I just got this online. It works pretty well. Put it along all the open edges, the cut edges of your leather. Let it soak. While it's doing that, I'm updating a list. I have a lot of lists. While I'm working like this, I'm thinking of, maybe I should make a video of this or that. So I try to be productive while I'm waiting. This is a burnishing tool, which is pretty cool. Has all these different size cutouts in it, rounded edge and a pokey edge. And you use that to line up on the edge of your leather like that. And you're just going to rub that burnishing gum in, or beeswax or whatever. You don't have to press hard. You just want to rub it in. And that furry cut on the edge of the leather, it smooths it out and makes it look nice and finished. It's kind of a little shiny and it looks nice. You'll see it here, the difference. You see that? It looks a lot cleaner than it did before. So it's all cleaned up and ready to rock and roll. There you go. Happy with it. Came out really well. I really like this idea. I'm thinking that a lot more of my smaller knives could handle this, the fancier ones. So there you go.
Whoops, weren't meant to see that. Ha! So, there you are, how I make a sheath. As you can see, I am no expert. I can barely get by. I don't have the tools, the work area, and all the fancy things needed to really do it professionally. I do it for fun. It's things I like to do. And I always try to get better every time I do it. I see something, I see a knife, I get a knife, oh, it needs a sheath. Or I see a blank, oh, it needs a handle. Opinals, can always mod them. And I have lists and lists all over the place. Here's one here. I write things down all the time about, I should try that. I've watched the videos and everything of these, the leather pros. They've got a beautiful shop, perfect leather table and all that good stuff. I don't have access to that. I've got a shed that has no electricity, kind of sort of half a room for my man cave with a little put together workshop right there. Not even a workshop, it's just a bench. That's what I use. And I know a lot of people would like to try some of these projects because lately I've had a lot of comments on, I'd like to do that. I've had a lot of, do you have the dimensions and things like that? To be honest, I don't measure much. I do measure, but I don't keep track of it because just about everything I do, I don't repeat. It's probably never the same sheath every time. And, I like to change what I'm doing. I saw a similar thing done, way fancier than this, but this was the basics of it. The wraparound with a snap. The one I saw was, there was all sorts of stuff done to the leather. I don't know what you call it when they make patterns on them and that sort of thing. I can't do that. Maybe one day I'll give it a try. I'm always trying to do something different. Like you saw, I don't have a set number, dimensions and everything. Unfortunately, sometimes you kind of waste some leather. The amount I waste is not that much. There you go. If you have any questions, what I will do is below in the description, I will list where I got the stuff I have, the tools and stuff like that. Very inexpensive. I didn't buy anything fancy or anything like that. I got used tools that I fixed. I bought a little leather starter kit, sewing kit type thing, that sort of thing. So you can do it. I am not joking. I kid you not. You could do this on a nice kitchen table. It just takes some patience and practice. And I'm still practicing, and my patience, well, so here it is here. You can see there. This stitching, to be honest, I didn't do the stitching I would normally do. Certainly on the back here inside. A baseball stitch there gives you more control and really pulls the leather nice and tight and keeps it straight. I wasn't worried about that. It looks better. It's a beautiful stitch if you do it right. You're not going to see it on here. I just wanted to hold that together. And of course I had it across the top here, which held it together anyway. So I wasn't too concerned about it. I try to make it as easy as possible. I'm not very good at the whole stitching thing. I never seem to get it just right, or there's always something I mess up. And now my Tinker has a home. Now I'm thinking, down the road, this is very nice. I was so impressed with these knives. I'm scared to look any further because it's a rabbit hole, and it's a deep, deep rabbit hole. I certainly want one with scissors. I think you've got to have scissors. When though, they're kind of pricey for me, budget and all that. But I thought it deserved a sheath at least. And my original intention was just to throw it in the drawer and use it as a tinker at my tinker table. But then I thought, it would be nice to carry it around now and again and have it on me. So I thought it needs a pouch. And having said that, I don't even know if it fits on my belt. To be honest, I had to run upstairs and change and put pants on with a belt. Oh yeah, I forgot. I had one of my modified OPs on here. I'll take that off and we'll put this on. So your belt would go through there, just like that. One thing about leather is when you work with it, if you don't make it really tight in the beginning, it stretches over time. So if you make it too loose, it's going to get really loose. And there you have it there. Sits just like that. It's nice and snug. Look at that. Isn't this exciting? You need your tinker. You're going to tinker around. You're going to grab it, pull it out. Here it is. Finish tinkering, put it back, snap. It's not going anywhere. It's nice, small, compact, sits on there nicely, and it's not really obvious. Very cool. Sorry, I've got to put my oppie back on. These things are going to be hard to replace for me. So, there you go. My tinker pouch. Pleased the way this worked out. I think I like it. I really like this. It's so unusual. It's cool. It's different. It's not just a sheath. It's a cool sheath. Just the whole look of it. You all be safe out there. And don't you forget, like, share, subscribe. You know the story. Pretty sure I'll be back. I've got a couple of things that have come in, been waiting on them. Some interesting stuff and stuff I can play with, which is always a good thing. Thanks for watching. See you again soon.